Welcome back to the podcast with no name. I am Lucky Robert Curtis, the professional idiot. I'm joined by my co-host, as always, the idiot savant of mixed martial arts, the #1 Sakuraba fan on the planet, Derek Langhorn.
Hello, everybody. How's it going today?
Well, thank you for asking, Derek. I'm going swell. Actually, that's a lie. I was sick all weekend. But somehow, because of my dedication to you and to mixed martial arts, I struggle up from the depths of my despair from my personal injury to watch UFC 154. But before we get to that, let's just give a quick shout out. I am a columnist for WhatCulture.com and for MMAshare.com, the center for everything mixed martial arts on the internet. Much love to both websites. From last podcast, we did have a naming contest. Mm-hmm. We asked you, our listeners, our dear friends, to help us come up with a name. Because two idiots, wasn't doing it for me.
Yeah, not much.
Maybe by the preview for UFC 5 on Fox, UFC on Fox 5, Bindo versus Diaz, we'll finally pick one. But for now, we're happy with the podcast with no name. Sounds fairly ominous. Let's open it up before we get into the card, into the undercard. Let's talk about some news and bits around the mixed martial arts world. First, Dana actually confirmed, I think at the weigh-ins for UFC 154, that Ronda Rousey is indeed a signed UFC fighter.
Yeah, this is really exciting. As I expected, they're not going to bring over the 145-pound division, and as Dana said, if Cyborg wants to fight Rousey, she has to drop to 135. Cyborg has said that her doctors would not allow her to drop to 135, but I feel that if she just stops putting those weights up and just starts dropping the weight, I think she can make it. We'll see what happens. They haven't confirmed anybody else to have been signed by the UFC, but Rousey is the first one.
And the thing that's important to note here is that Cyborg is going to her doctors, not to the UFC's doctors, probably framing it in a very specific question. Can I drop from my current weight to 135? And they're saying no. But if she were to change her body, because she is very muscular, she could easily cut muscle to where she could drop to 135. She is not 6'4".
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's not asking someone with a massive frame to lose skeletal mass.
Mm-hmm.
She just doesn't want to fight at 135.
Yeah. If she cuts back on her strength and conditioning, I think she could easily do it.
And quite frankly, with the positive steroid test and the visible look of Cyborg, I wouldn't be surprised if she was just losing muscle mass already.
Yeah.
Not very nice thing to say, not very fair, but she's the one that tested positive for the steroids. Another thing, in an interview with Ariel Helwani, Dana White responded to some criticism about Chael Sonnen going from loss to loss to title shot to title shot. And he said something very interesting. He said, you've got all these bitter babies out there crying, like Dan Henderson. Dan Henderson is supposed to be friends with him. What are you crying about? You turned down the Jones fight twice.
Yeah.
Can you believe Dana White just called Dan Henderson, an MMA legend, a bitter crybaby?
I think it more has to do with Dana. It's kind of an emotional response to the situation.
Dana White never gives emotional responses.
Never. I'm with Dan on this one. I mean, the fight's going to be a long time away because it's tough. I feel sympathy for Dan. I mean, if it was, say, just another fight, say at UFC 156 or something a little bit down the road, then I would kind of understand why Dan Henderson or why Dana would think he was a crybaby. But Dan has to wait for a really long time for this tough to be over and then for the fight to materialize. So I'm siding with Dan Henderson on this one.
I think I probably am too, and mainly for this reason. Dan Henderson is old, and he doesn't have much of a window left. So if we keep putting him on the shelf, granted he did have knee injuries, so that's not really fair for Dana White to say he turned down the fight because it makes it seem like he was ducking Jones. But Dan Henderson is a legend. He's fought all over the place in terms of weight classes. If he has a chance to fight Jones, I think we should try to capitalize on that and maybe give Chael the next fight or the fight after that.
Or just not give Chael a fight.
That's true. The other question is this. Do you think Chael or Dan Henderson has a better fight, a better chance against John Jones?
I go with Dan Henderson. I just think Dan Henderson's better everywhere besides the power double. I just don't see Sonnen being able to mount a significant offense. His only real technique is that power double, and he's really persistent with it, but he's really undersized. I mean, it's going to be a man versus a child in there. I don't see Chael Sonnen standing any real chance against John Jones, to be honest.
I don't see Dan Henderson having much of a chance either, but I do agree with you. I think Dan Henderson is the more compelling matchup because Dan Henderson has the H-bomb.
Yeah.
What else is out there on the news wire for mixed martial arts?
Couple injuries. Gray Maynard got injured, and Jim Miller steps in against Joe Lozon at UFC 155. I actually really love this matchup. I think it's more interesting. Jim Miller always comes to fight. I think it'll be a great fight, probably fight of the night. Shane Carwin also got injured, which kind of leads me to believe that he should probably retire because he's getting injured all the time. We haven't seen him fight for forever. Matt Mitrione steps in against Roy Nelson for the tough finale. That's an alright fight. I mean, Matt Mitrione's kind of out of his league in that fight, I think, a little bit. But also, last night we did see that Access TV, the formerly known as HGNet logo, was on the mat in the UFC cage, which kind of leads me to believe that maybe they have a little bit of a partnership going on.
All right, good catch, Derek. Keep an eye out for that one. Any other bits before we move on to the undercard?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
So, the undercard, there was some shuffling. Nick Ring and Costa Philippou was canceled on the main card, and so the Mark Bocek Rafael Dos Anjos fight was moved up to the main card, which is good because in our preview show, that was the fight that I said shouldn't be on the undercard.
Yeah.
That's a fight that should be on the main card. Let's get to the Facebook undercard, starting with Steven Seiler versus Darren Elkins. Elkins earned a unanimous decision over Steven Seiler. What did you see?
Oh, well, Darren Elkins surprised me again. I got to stop counting this guy out. Darren Elkins did great work against the cage, used some great body lock takedowns, and did damage from the top. Seiler does pretty good work from the bottom. He has really good leg dexterity, goes for mission control, and throws up some submissions, but he didn't really get anything close. Elkins just basically dominated him with takedowns. At the end there, Seiler was really looking pretty lazy. He threw some lazy single kicks, got taken down, and Seiler really ended up leaving his hands really low, his head straight up in the air, and his jab was pretty lazy. He pulled it back pretty slow. When he gasses, his footwork just goes straight out the window. He just plods forward and basically just gets taken down at any time.
This is the narrative of mixed martial arts, this fight right here. You can be talented, you can be technical, but if you can't stuff a takedown, you won't win a fight.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it is a microcosm of the whole fight was just the third round.
Yeah.
And Darren Elkins got 3 takedowns. He got a leg sweep from a body lock, first takedown in third round. He got a single leg takedown, and then he got a double leg takedown.
Yeah.
Seiler showed good submission defense from the bottom, but that was it. Caption, one of our MMAshare.com friends wrote, Seiler will never make it to the top tier if he doesn't learn to tuck that chin and work on his takedown defense. Joe Rogan was mentioning it the whole night. The guy's head was on a flagpole.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's such a big guy for that weight class. I mean, he's so tall, and he's pretty young. I don't think he's really figured out the way his body works. I just think he needs to grow into his body a little bit more. Also, he just needs to work on his takedown defense. Elkin, you can't let a guy get 8 takedowns in a fight.
Yeah, Elkins is now 15-2, and at the featherweight division, I guess he's set to make a run at being a contender. Let's move to the next fight, 135, bantamweight, Ivan Menjivar, 24-9, versus Azamat Gashimov. Menjivar pulled off a slick belly-down armbar in the first round.
This was a mismatch, in my opinion. Biggest mismatch of the night. Azamat hasn't really fought anybody, and in my opinion, Ivan Menjivar is top 10, maybe even top 5 in the division. Menjivar landed some good body punches in the beginning right before that armbar, but then he got taken down by Gashimov with that body lock takedown. And Menjivar goes for one armbar, Gashimov shakes it off, and he goes for that other one. Gashimov pulled straight up, stood up, and Menjivar hooked that leg, rolled the belly down, and he hyperextended that arm. And that look on Azamat's face, pretty intense. Looked like he was in severe pain. Definitely needed to tap a little bit earlier, I think, and that was submission of the night.
Get His Up Ya, another user from MMAshare.com, a fellow Australian. He's native. I'm an expat. Looking at the replay of that armbar, Gashimov should have tried to stack him instead of trying to break free. I absolutely agree, but I think the arm started to hyperextend before Ivan was even on the ground, and I think Gashimov totally panicked.
Yeah.
And just started to flail, and that's actually what probably... Do you know if his arm was broken or hyperextended? Did you hear?
It didn't look like it. I mean, I didn't hear anything after the fight. They didn't do any post-fight interviews with him.
It looked like it was jacked, that's for sure, and he probably could have avoided that.
Yeah, he could have tapped, but those Russians don't really like to tap, as we've seen in a lot of other fights.
Oh, I think he would have tapped. I think he panicked. But I will say this, Gashimov, lots of strength, and his first shoot... He did one of those sliding heel grabs that John Smith was so famous for. I was really impressed for the first 30 seconds, but unfortunately, it's a 15-minute fight. Next fight, Matthew Riddle versus John McGuire. Kind of an ugly fight. Riddle got a unanimous decision.
In this fight, I saw Riddle, at least in the beginning, not near the end. He looked a lot more conservative than he usually does. He wasn't throwing bombs and looking for a brawl. He was kind of, looking for punches, looking for kicks. It was kind of a sloppy kickboxing match in the first round. Matt Riddle then started to outmuscle McGuire. McGuire just couldn't really get anything going. It looked like he was doing pretty well, but I thought Riddle, all in all, got the better of the takedowns, got the better of the strikes. Just kind of edged him everywhere. I don't really agree with the judge's decision being 30-27, 30-27, and 29-28. I thought it was pretty close. I thought it was a lot closer than that, especially in the third round when the striking was pretty close, and McGuire actually has pretty surprisingly good head movement.
I thought McGuire won round 2 because what he was doing is he was allowing Riddle, who's actually fairly wild with his striking. He was the faster, but McGuire was, as you said, he was bobbing his head and then getting off nice counters. And I thought he very cleanly won round 2. One thing I noticed about Riddle, he was the bigger fighter, but he didn't use his reach.
I just don't really know if Riddle knows how to use his reach at this point. He's more of a guy that just throws hooks. If he got with a pretty good striking coach, he might be able to fix that. He's very big for that weight. I think he needs to work on that for sure, because him just using hooks and going in for brawls isn't going to work forever.
So in your opinion, James McSweeney, not a good striking coach?
No, I don't think he is.
Let's go to the next fight, the last fight of the Facebook undercard, Antonio Carvalho versus Rodrigo Dam.
Basically, the story of the fight was Carvalho's kicks against Dam's punches. Dam's striking actually looks a lot better now since he's been training at Black House. Carvalho's power was just much greater than Dam's. There's barely any wind-up to it, and he throws tight hooks. Dam never really went for any takedowns, which is kind of strange to me. And even when Carvalho did slip at one point and Dam got into guard, Carvalho scrambled quickly and got up really easily.
The narrative of this fight is you've got two Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts facing off, and so it becomes a kickboxing match. Like you said, I think Rodrigo won the fists, but he lost the leg kicks. And his leg looked really, really terrible. But I guess, to his credit, he didn't really seem like it affected him.
Those leg kicks looked brutal, but yeah, he didn't really slow down very much. I just thought he needed to go for more takedowns because I really think he is the significantly better grappler than Carvalho.
There's a difference in black belts. And I agree with you. I think Rodrigo Dam would be another tier above Carvalho. But even with that being said, even with it staying on its feet, a lot of people thought that Rodrigo Dam won. Hazy J wrote, I thought Dam won that fight. He pushed the pace the entire time, landed some clean punches. Carvalho landed a bunch of leg kicks and one decent punch. Leg kicks alone shouldn't win you a fight.
I disagree. Carvalho's leg kicks were brutal. I think leg kicks are extremely significant. In my opinion, more significant than the jab. Leg kicks do a lot of damage. Just because they aren't hitting him on the face and stunning him does not mean that they're not effective. I thought Carvalho won this fight for sure.
I agree, and I'm fine with the split decision too. The blame lies on Rodrigo. I think he was the aggressor in the fight moving forward, but he did not try to execute any sort of a game plan other than just looking to load up. When he did get on the ground, there was a flurry of action, a scramble, and a lot of people I think were pretty impressed with the transitions. But I think what was missed in that exchange was Dam went for a highly risky move, leaping over for the back, for a back mount, and that allowed Carvalho just to completely slide out. It was a high-risk maneuver when he had guard that he could have worked from. Dam sacrificed or squandered a great position, I think, in the second round for a flashy highlight move that didn't work.
Yeah, absolutely. I just thought Carvalho got the better of the striking the whole fight, and I think it should have been a unanimous decision, to be honest. Yeah,
it was a point fight, and in that regard, Carvalho took it. Next fight, Sam Stout versus John McDessie. A lightweight fight, two Canadians. What did you see?
I love this fight, to be honest. McDessie looked great. His jab was beautiful. Stout really seems to keep his hands a little bit low, and McDessie made him pay with that jab. And he stumbled Stout in the first with a good left punch. McDessie countered Stout coming in the whole night with that jab and was basically just picking him up. McDessie's timing was very fluid. He knew when to counter, he knew when to stuff takedowns, and he knew when to explode. McDessie stuffed all of Stout's takedowns, a total of 5 takedowns. He stuffed all of them.
Is Sam Stout regressing?
No, I just think he's not improving. I don't think he's getting worse. I think he's just stagnant. I think he's stagnant in his career. I don't think he's really getting any better.
Strife wrote on MMAshare.com, Stout's striking looks amateur tonight. Is that just because McDessie was working in the jab?
when you look at Stout and Makdessi, in my opinion, is the better striker. He has incredible footwork, great head movement, and that jab just looked amazing. Stout just couldn't find his range. When you're comparing the two guys, Stout much less technical than Makdessi. He had his hands low, his footwork was plodding, and he just really couldn't get his range. So when you compare the two, Makdessi just looks so much better that it makes Stout look amateur, I think.
Let's go to the next fight. This was a good one. Cyril Diabate versus Chad Griggs, Mr. Mutton Chops. This fight ended in the first round with a rear naked choke.
This fight kind of shows that Chad Griggs is not UFC caliber. Griggs just ran out super aggressive and then just paid for it with a left straight from Diabate as he's coming in. eSofty8 would agree with you. He wrote, absolutely embarrassing stand-up by Griggs. He was rushing at a guy with an 8-inch reach advantage. Yeah, it was ridiculous. That's not how you get inside. You don't just run at a guy. Griggs goes for the takedown as he's recovering for that left straight, and Diabate just gets his back immediately by countering a takedown, spinning the back. Sinks in the RNC, Griggs taps out immediately. In my opinion, Griggs either needs to somehow improve his grappling and even his striking, or he has no chance against most of the guys at light heavyweight.
This was his debut at light heavyweight, so he could improve, I guess. To get subbed by Cyril Diabate, a French Muay Thai fighter, that's kind of embarrassing.
How is he going to do against some of the top guys, the top wrestlers at light heavyweight? It's just not going to happen.
All right, the last fight of the prelims, a very controversial fight. Patrick Cote winning by disqualification over Alessio Sakara. Sakara landed, by my count, 8 unfettered, unstopped blows to the back of the head.
This fight was pretty exciting while it lasted, but that controversy just kind of overshadowed everything in the fight. Cote started looking pretty good in the beginning. He got Sakara in the clinch, landed good punches and knees. Then Sakara spun, got Cote's back to the cage, and dropped Cote with that big right elbow.
And that was surprising because Cote has a chin.
Yeah, for sure. But then Cote goes for that single leg, and then Sakara lands, you say 8, I saw about 7, right to the back of Cote's head with big hammer fists.
Back of the head and the back of the neck.
Yeah.
Sam9104 wrote, it looked like Cote was holding on to the single leg trying to survive. That was a very good disqualification because he might have survived if he wasn't knocked out from the punches to the back of the head. And here's the thing about Cote. A lot of people are saying, well, Alessio Sakara would have won that anyway, but Cote has a monster chin, and had he been able to legally grab onto the leg and not get hammered from the back of the head, he most likely would have recovered. Mm-hmm. And then that would have been round 1 for Sakara, but he's got 2 more rounds to win back the fight. If you're a fighter, I can understand 1 hit to the back of the head by accident, but 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to the back of the head and to the back of the neck?
Yeah. The reason why I think it should have been a no contest is because the ref was just standing there staring at him. He didn't warn him, and if he would have warned him and said, watch the back of the head, and he kept going, it should have been a DQ. But just the fact that he was just standing there is I think it should have been a no contest, but it also shows how bad of a ref that guy is.
Dan Mergliotta.
Was that Dan Mergliotta?
That was Mergliotta, yep.
I can't believe that. That is insane.
Here's what he should have done. And let's play devil's advocate, because some people that were watching the fight said that they did indeed hear Mergliotta say, watch the shots to the back of the head. That's what you say after the first one. After the third or fourth, you stop them and allow Cote to recover, just like a groin shot. You just don't allow him. And Mergliotta stopped that fight as a KO win for Sakara. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Quebec, their athletic commission has instant replay.
Yeah.
And they overturned it after the fight was stopped into a disqualification win.
That just kind of puts more fuel on the fire to show that we should have instant replay pretty much everywhere.
Let's move on to the main card, the pay-per-view card. The first fight was Mark Hominick versus Pablo Garza. Pablo Garza won a unanimous decision after a amazing first round. Mm-hmm. I thought that this would be a fight that would determine which one of these fighters would be cut from the UFC. But I'm changing my opinion after I saw the fight.
Really?
Yeah.
I hope they don't cut Hominick. I mean, I think he's a very exciting fighter, but I think they might. Dana said that he would talk to the guys about it, and we'll see what happens. I mean, Hominick always breaks it.
I think that first round earned Mark Hominick another fight.
Yeah. That
first round alone. Had it been 3 rounds, like 2 and 3, I think Hominick would be out. But you did say in our preview that you thought Pablo Garza was overrated, perhaps even majorly overrated. What's your opinion of him now?
Pablo Garza, I kind of think he is still a little bit overrated, but I didn't know he had that fold in his game of that wrestling. He looked good. Hominick looked pretty composed in this fight, had great defense, chin tucked, hands high. And then in that first round, Garza looked pretty uncomfortable and was really aggressive. And Hominick did drop Garza with that left hook to the body. But in that second round, Garza just took him down, and Hominick couldn't really do much. I mean, he attempted to roll and try to roll for some submissions to omoplatas, but he just couldn't get it. Garza had great top control and just battered him for most of the second round. And in that third round, Hominick started doing pretty well, but then Garza got that double leg. Hominick started to attack from his back, but he didn't really commit at all. They ended up standing. Garza goes for another takedown, and then Hominick crazily rolls for an omoplata for some reason. It's a really high-risk move, and I don't know why he did that.
The other thing about Hominick's 5'8", and he's got a 68-inch reach, 68.5 to be exact. Garza is 6'1", and he's got a 73-inch reach. Hominick cannot sit in the guard because Garza has such a reach advantage. He was landing elbows almost at arm's length of Hominick.
Yeah.
And I think you could see that in Hominick's face after the fight.
I don't understand why Hominick, he couldn't mount any significant offense off of his back. It'll be interesting to see if they do cut Hominick, but if you really think about it, what else does he have to prove? Do you think he might retire?
He's pretty young. I don't think he'll retire.
I just don't think they'll give him another shot at all, though.
I think Garza he's now 12-3. He's obviously got a much more diverse striking game than I think we thought in the past. He's worked on his wrestling. I mean, he made Hominick look pretty amateurish. I think Garza is actually a very strong 145er. I think Hominick probably deserves another shot at one of the lower tier fighters. But he's a warrior, and Dana likes warriors. He'll just like Dan Hardy.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to see, though. Hominick is a great warrior. Always puts on a great fight.
Here's the fight that was moved up to the main card, which I thought was the best fight on the undercard before it was moved up. It's Mark Bocek versus Rafael Dos Anjos. This was a complete mismatch. Yeah,
it was crazy. I had Bocek all the way in this fight, but Dos Anjos, he looks great. After working underneath Rafael Cordero and King's MMA, his footwork looked amazing. His striking looked great. His takedown defense was absolutely beautiful. Bocek is a great wrestler, and he stuffed almost every single one of his takedowns. Dos Anjos was just too much for Bocek. I had never seen Dos Anjos look this great. I've never seen it. Bocek looked for some cage work, looked for takedowns, but he couldn't get any in. Bocek looked visibly tired near the middle of the second round and just couldn't mount any offense at all. Dos Anjos ended up getting his own takedowns, caught his back, landed some great ground and pound. Bocek just got outclassed on the feet and both on the ground. I've never seen anybody do this great against Bocek. I mean, Frankie Edgar did finish him in the first round, but not even Jim Miller or Ben Henderson looked this great against Mark Bocek.
Dos Anjos outclassed Mark Bocek in every facet, like you said, but not only on the feet and on the ground, but also cardio, athletically, speed, quickness, game plan. Bocek was just trying to grind out Dos Anjos against the wall. And it completely backfired. Bocek's a tough kid, I gotta give him that, but Dos Anjos looked legit. He looked like he had Ben Henderson type of athleticism in that fight.
We had never seen Bocek gas like that. Dos Anjos just made Bocek work for everything he did in the fight, and he couldn't keep it up, and it was crazy to see because we always have seen that Bocek has great athleticism, has a great gas tank.
And Dos Anjos, at the end of the fight, within the last 30 seconds, was throwing axe kicks, front kicks.
Yeah.
Showboating. Looked like he just started. It was pretty amazing.
It was amazing. This is definitely his coming out party. He looked awesome last night.
Rafael Dos Anjos is one of the fighters, I think, in particular, whose stock has really risen as a result of this. Next fight was a disaster. Francis Carmont against Tom Lawler at middleweight. Carmont won a split decision.
That was atrocious. I had Francis Carmont winning this fight, hands down. Thought it was a mismatch. But Tom Lawler won that fight, in my opinion. To be honest, though, both of them lost that fight. That was one of the most boring fights I've seen in a long time. Tom Lawler just tried to do his best Randy Couture impression without actually working on any strikes against the cage like Randy did. Just kind of trying to push him up against the cage. Whenever they would separate, Carmont would land some good punches, good kicks. He had some nice straight punches. He really just couldn't do much when Lawler was just pushing him against the cage. Lawler went for that arm and guillotine a couple times. It was pretty tight, but he was leaning back towards the ground on it, and that's not how you finish an arm and guillotine. You got to stay high and pull your body close to your opponent. A standard guillotine where the arm is not in is finished by leaning back. Just couldn't finish it. But those were pretty tight. If he would have just pulled his body up, kind of like he was doing a sit-up, then he probably would have got the finish. This fight was really boring. Basically, the story of the fight was Lawler pushing him up against the cage and looking for the takedown. Carmont's takedown defense was pretty good. He lost a couple takedowns. Yeah, nothing really happened in this fight. Carmont landed some strikes, but it was mainly controlled by Lawler, and that decision was absolutely ridiculous.
Forsyth from MMAsure.com called it daylight robbery. I think Francis Carmont took a page out of Chet Congo's book. Don't do anything.
Yeah.
Put your hands out there. And Francis Carmont was sticking his hand open out the entire fight.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept thinking, he's going to poke Tom Lawler in the eye. And by the third round, he did. I just hated this fight. Carmont didn't do anything, didn't try to do anything. He just looked to throw. He was loading up that right hand a little bit and popped it off a few times. Lawler was never hurt. Lawler, for his part, I don't think brought much to the match either. Styles make fights, and this one was a snoozer.
This also brings forth that the refs were really antsy last night, kind of telling the fighters what to do, telling them to work. And at one point in this fight, Lawler was deep on a single leg, and the ref stepped in and separated him, which I thought was kind of ridiculous. I don't think you should ever do that.
Was this the fat ref?
I think so, with that awesome Joe Rogan comment.
Yeah, he says, how fat do you have to be before it affects your performance?
That was funny.
He had another joke, another off-color joke about Lance Bass. Look that one up on the internet. I'm not going to repeat it. Boring fight, middleweight fight. Neither of these guys are going anywhere soon. Let's go to the co-main event, welterweight. Johnny Hendricks, OSU Cowboy.
Your man, Johnny Hendricks.
You're damn right, versus Martin Kampmann.
This was beautiful, man.
Let me just read some comments from MMAshare.com, because the fight's not really long enough to talk about, so I'll just read some comments.
All right.
Holy shit by Strife. Holy fucking Christ by Forsyth. Bam! Wow! By Kasparov. Holy shit burgers by Punch in the Face. Holy shit again by Sam, 9104. This is a beautiful fight. 46 seconds of it. I literally had goosebumps all over my body.
It was insane. Who on this planet, if Johnny Hendricks lands that big left hand, can stay standing? I don't think there's anybody. Maybe Mark Hunt, maybe Roy Nelson, maybe.
Pound for pound, Johnny Hendricks has to have the biggest power.
I think so. You might even have more power than Hendo. It barely even clipped him, it looked like. This is a clean left straight, right on the button, put him straight out. It was crazy. I mean, Kampmann started looking out pretty good, staying on the outside like I thought he should, and Hendricks was just looking for that big left hook.
In the pre-fight package, Martin Kampmann said, of course I have to worry about his left hand, but it's a fight, you're going to get hit. Not the smartest strategy in retrospect.
No, you can't get hit by Johnny Hendricks. You just can't let it happen. He set it up with the right hook and comes straight down the pipe with that great, powerful straight left. Dropped him, put him out unconscious. Hendricks did throw kind of an unnecessary left hand while Kampmann was on the ground, but you can't really fault him for it. I mean, he was just in the moment.
I don't think Hendricks really landed that tough. I don't think he, for instance, compare Dan Henderson's left hook on Bisping. He caught him completely flush and sent Bisping back to the Revolutionary War. If Johnny Hendricks lands like that, I think he may kill somebody.
I think so, too. Yeah, it wasn't completely clean like the Dan Henderson one.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And in fact, Martin Kampmann flew across the ring 2 feet, landed in almost the exact same spot as John Fitch.
Yeah, exactly. Kampmann seems to have some chin problems. I mean, I was talking in the pre-fight podcast that he usually has a lot of resilience and recovery to come back, but I think he does have kind of a bit of a chin problem. He kind of reminds me in that same way as Frankie Edgar. They get dropped easily, but they have a lot of resilience and recovery to come back, but Hendricks just put that power on him and knocked him clean out.
So with Hendricks, you've got an NCAA, I think, 2-time champion with incredible power, just incredible power. Is he the most legit shot at GSP right now?
For the belt, yeah, I'd say so. Unless GSP goes up and fights Silva, which we'll talk about later. But
that won't be for the belt.
Yeah, exactly. For the belt, yeah, I think so.
I think Hendricks will be out-technicaled by GSP.
Yeah,
I think
sure.
Hendricks will look for a big punch. I think GSP will get his takedowns. Wrestlers hate fighting from their back, and I think GSP will live every round there.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think he will also gas out Hendricks. We haven't seen Hendricks in deep waters, really, except for the Koscheck fight, and he didn't really look that great in the Koscheck fight, to be honest.
I think Johnny could but the thing that's tough is it's a 15-pound weight difference between welterweight and light. He could probably fight at 163.
I think he's kind of the same body type as... Not like the wrestler body type, but as weight, as say a BJ Penn. Like he wouldn't. BJ was too. I think he's a little bit too small at 155. I think him at like 163 would be perfect. And I think Johnny Hendricks fits in that same area.
In college, he wrestled at 157, 165, 165, 165. Anyway, brilliant fight. Johnny Hendricks, John Smith all the way. Rah, rah, rah. Hopefully my buddy, OK State 2011, feels like I've given John Smith enough props. All right, now on to the main fight of the card. And lordy, lordy, did it live up to its billing. This could easily be, in my opinion, the fight of the year, given the circumstances. Interim champion Carlos Condit versus returning champion GSP after a 560-day layoff, looking vulnerable, looking antsy, irritated during press conferences, and in the walk-in to the fight, to the octagon, looking visibly nervous.
Man, this fight was absolutely beautiful. This fight had everything. Immediately, right when the fight started, you saw that GSP still has the speed and athleticism that made him king. It doesn't really seem like that knee injury affected him much. The only thing that really affected him, in my opinion, was the ring rust. And he showed awesome aggressiveness in the beginning of the fight, and got those takedowns against the cage after going for those hook combos. He got those all night. His ground and pound was, honestly, I think the best it's ever looked. He was extremely aggressive with it and never even let Condit get any opportunities for submissions. Whenever Condit would go for submissions, he'd just shuck him off, get right back into guard, and start landing those big elbows and right hooks.
In the post-fight press conference, GSP mentioned that he'd spoke at length with Dan Hardy. He admitted that his mistake against Dan Hardy was that he only went for submissions, and this time he was going to try to beat up Condit. And that's exactly what he did, and he cut him, a horrible cut, with a short elbow at the end of the first round. I mean, that was a nasty cut.
Yeah, that part when Condit got up after the first round and lifts his hands up to the air with blood all around his face, that kind of showed what the fight was going to be. It was a great war. It was awesome. Condit was looking pretty good on the feet, though. I mean, he's a very good striker. He's kind of awkward with his style.
He looked very active in the guard, too, to be honest. I mean, he was trying to throw up submissions. He was doing little pitter-pat punches from the bottom, trying to score. Ultimately, he ended up with more overall strikes than GSP. But for the first two rounds, GSP looked like GSP. He was grounding. He was dominating with top control. Technically, he was perfect. Joe Rogan said he didn't put a hand on the mat at all during the... I think, actually, no, that was Dominic Cruz that said that. He didn't put his hand on the mat, kept his hands firmly, tightly, and a nice striking platform on Condit. But it was round 3 that made this fight brilliant. That high kick from Condit is what really introduced the drama into this fight.
I think that all came together because Condit was just not intimidated by GSP. Condit threw that strange left hook and then went for a weird right straight. It was very awkward, as Condit's striking style really is. Then he ducked down and pretended as if he was going to turn his body and circle out to the right. But as he turned his body, he threw that clean left head kick, put GSP right on the canvas. GSP showed the heart of a true champion. He defended well. That has been a major question in his fights. Will he be able to get back after some tough things going on? Will he be able to come back from adversity like he didn't do in the Matt Serra fight? And he showed that he is a champion for a reason. He has the heart of a champion and can come back from lots of adversity.
I knew you would struggle with hyperbole when we're talking about GSP. You are such a GSP fan.
I am.
He did say in the post-fight presser that as a younger fighter, he would have immediately tried to strike back to even the score. But as a more experienced fighter, he immediately went into defense for recovery. And even so, with him hiding in his guard, Condit looked lethal from the top. Elbow, elbow, elbow. GSP escaped and then landed a critical takedown. I believe he actually even got Condit up over his shoulders and put him down under the canvas of a sort of mini slam. And after that, after they both went to the corners, it was anybody's fight.
Yeah, I mean, Condit, I was honestly really scared at that point. I love myself some GSP. Condit is truly the natural born killer. When he gets you hurt, he finishes you. And I was really surprised at GSP's resilience in that. GSP defended amazingly, even though he if you rewatch the fight, GSP did not see that coming at all. And those are the strikes that really hurt. GSP just showed great heart. I was really impressed by him.
So round 4, round 5, GSP goes back to his formula of success, gets Condit on the ground. Both fighters are trying to work the wounds, the cut on Condit, the swelling on GSP with their hammer fists. Some people on MMA Share wrote that GSP should have gone for some submissions, but he actually addressed this. He said that he's watched Condit very closely, and though Condit, I think, has only landed maybe one takedown in all of his fights, he spends half of the time on the ground on top, so he's a very tricky fighter, and he felt like Condit was trying to bait him into going for more risky submissions like the side choke, but GSP pulled out of it because he was more comfortable doing the striking from the top. Great fight. So GSP wins. Surprisingly, 2 judges gave GSP all 5 rounds. Do you think that's fair?
Well, if you really think about it, Condit only really had control in that 3rd round for about, I'd say, a minute and a half, 2 minutes. The rest of the fight was spent with GSP on top, landing ground and pound. I personally would have given the 3rd round to Carlos Condit, but I can understand why somebody wouldn't give it to him.
I can understand it, but it's stupid. Because the most significant strike, the most significant moment in that fight, if you were to boil it down to one, was that kick, the high kick from Condit.
Yeah,
that won him the 3rd round. Now, obviously, the overall domination heavily in GSP's favor, particularly if you look at significant strikes.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked you in our previous show, is this GSP at his most vulnerable when he has the chance to be upset the most? And I believe you said yes. After the fight, GSP responded to some criticism about him not finishing fights. And I thought this fight in particular stripped away this veneer of excellence that GSP had where he hasn't looked touchable. Like when he fought Koscheck, he jabbed Koscheck into looking like the Toxic Avenger.
Yeah.
But GSP came into this fight nervous, at one point even debating retirement, and I think he was stripped bare. I think you got to see GSP's heart for the first time. Not the excellence, not the polish, not the sublime skills. And as a result, this kind of a quote comes out. And he wrote this. He said this: "I don't care the critics what they say. I fought. I gave everything I had tonight. I am like I am. I use my body as best as I can. I don't have the knockout power of Rampage Jackson. I don't have the athletic ability of John Jones. I don't have the accuracy of Anderson Silva or the wrestling of Chael Sonnen. I use my body with the tools I have the best as I can, and that's why I win fights."
It's a great quote. It's true. I mean, George St. Pierre puts everything together. In my opinion, he does have the athleticism, maybe not as incredible as John Jones, but he is up there. I think he's one of the most athletic people in the business. And we definitely saw the heart of a champion last night and saw why he is the champion and probably will remain champion, probably until he retires, unless Hendricks can land that big left hand.
I wrote that this fight was critical to maintaining or establishing GSP's legacy and continuing the trajectory that it's held for the first 8 years of his career. And I think GSP felt the same way. And this is indicative from that quote, from the fight itself, and from the fact GSP brought his parents into the octagon after the fight.
Yeah, that was a great moment.
It was. And I think that this fight meant everything to GSP. Whether he'll fight Anderson Silva or he'll continue fighting at welterweight, I don't know. I don't even know if that's a fight I'm really interested in seeing so much as a spectacle. But here's what some other people on MMAshare.com thought. "Never let your hands down when fighting Condit. GSP almost learned the hard way. I was having chills throughout the whole match. Carlos is a great fighter, but I wanted GSP to win so bad for just having seen what he's been through for the last 18 months. Amazing fight." That was from the Piano Man. Here's another one. "The way Condit set up that kick was beautiful. Best moment of the night besides Johnny Hendricks' ridiculous KO over Kampmann. I want to see Hendricks fight GSP before a potential super fight with Anderson. Which one would you rather see?"
Personally, I would like to see GSP fight Silva first because I truly believe that, and I'll get flamed for this, but I truly believe that GSP will beat Silva. I think he has the tools to beat him, and I think he can do it. But in the meantime, it'd be awesome to see Hendricks versus Diaz for the #1 contender fight. I know Diaz is coming off a loss, but it only makes sense as far as marketability goes. It would also be nice to see Condit versus Kampmann, too. I mean, Kampmann beat him in one of Condit's first fights in the UFC, and Condit has looked amazing. So I'd like to see that fight. I can't wait for GSP versus Silva. Dana says maybe May of next year, so we'll see how it happens.
My apologies, that last quote that I read was from Hazy J. By the way, Hazy J, you get my star of approval for this podcast as having the most insightful comments. Last time it was Epic Movements, this time it's you. Thank you, Hazy J. One thing that GSP said that I really, really loved is he was asked if Condit was the most difficult fight. In the cage, he pointed to Condit and said, "You're the best fighter I've ever fought." But in the post-fight press conference, they asked him, "Is this your toughest fight of your career?" And immediately he began to reconsider. And he mentioned John Fitch. He said John Fitch was an extremely tough fight. Now, listen to my hypothesis here. I'm going to say that John Fitch is the toughest fight of GSP's career because GSP fought Condit on a 567-day layoff with a surgically rebuilt knee.
Mm-hmm.
He fought Fitch, you could say, at the peak of his powers.
Yeah.
And so if he thought Fitch was tough then, imagine if he had fought that Fitch tonight.
Oh, yeah.
So I still think, regardless of the KO from Hendricks, and we can now see Hendricks can KO anybody. Hendricks can KO GSP, but that doesn't make GSP a bum, which is what a lot of people were saying about Fitch. I still think Fitch is number 2 or number 3 in the welterweights. All right, I'm prepared to be flamed. Bring it on. Fitch is the man. Lay and pray forever. War!
Yeah, it would be nice to maybe see Fitch fight GSP again. I just don't see it happening. I mean, it was a pretty dominant win for GSP, and I don't think Fitch will get another chance.
Is my bias towards wrestlers coming out? I'm worried that it is.
It is.
So name me the guy who you think stock went up the most.
Rafael dos Anjos.
I'm going to with Johnny Hendricks.
Oh, okay. I just think that everybody knew that Johnny Hendricks had that kind of power. So it was kind of like, if he could land that, he was going to knock him out no matter what. And I think Rafael dos Anjos just looked incredible.
I agree Dos Anjos looks incredible, but when Hendricks knocking out Fitch, there was a little bit of a flukiness there.
Mm-hmm.
But when he knocked out Kampmann, all of a sudden Johnny Hendricks is the welterweight Dan Henderson with better wrestling.
Yeah, definitely better wrestling.
Even with the decisions, they were great fights. And mixed into that, there were some absolutely amazing highlights. Of course, Johnny Hendricks being top of the list. He's an amazing fighter, and I want him to be my life partner. A final note, I just want to say congratulations. Every event, Coach Rich, one of the forefathers of MMAshare.com, has a pick'em tournament. This time, I think we had some around 60 people participate. The winner, as it appears right now, we may have to have a recount, was Blackie Jones at 10-2. He picked 10 fights, only missed 2. I personally entered it. I think I went 6 for 6. Not very good. Derek and I are offering our resignations on the podcast. Someone else please take over. Blackie Jones, do you want to host the podcast? So congratulations to Blackie Jones. And remember, you can always come in and join Coach Rich's Invitational every event on MMAshare.com. Also, please help us name our podcast. I'm tired of being called two idiots. I'm tired of having the podcast with no name. Sounds like we're trying to shill for Iron Maiden. With that being said, on behalf of WhatCulture.com, I'm Lucky Rob.
I'm Derek. Have a good one.
See you guys.
三つの